Hello, I'm Glenn W. Hunter, and with me today is Miss Tamika J. Carter. And what we're doing is building girl champs. So that's our show. And today's topic, we're going to talk about celebrating the dichotomy of Black girls. Tamika, considering you're the closest thing that we have to a Black girl on this show, what is it we need to be celebrating? I mean, this dichotomy of Black girls, what are we positing here?
Man, oh gosh, when I think about that, I think about my three girls, right? Because it's been a while, but as they're all cycling through the ages that I experienced, I am watching them cycle through some of the different things that I experienced at those ages emotionally and socially. So when we talk about Black girls, my area of study and focus really tends to be African American girls in predominantly white settings. That was some of my first area of socialization. So I actually went to Orange County schools growing up. And I tell people there were about 500 people in my school. It was me and about two other Black girls. And there were some things there that occurred that I didn't even really recognize until later as things that affected me psychosocially. So I went from there to a school in another city that was majority Black. And so that was very dichotomous for me. It was a culture shock, but that gave me the opportunity for another experience. And so with that, I have experienced Black girls from one end of the spectrum to the other, and I appreciate them. And I think it's so important that we as parents, educators, whomever is working with young ladies, understands that Black girls are not a monolith, right? We hear that all the time. Black girls are not, we are not a monolith. Don't typecast me. And so as we love on, teach, or whatever it is, Black girls, we have to kind of learn and understand that they present in several different ways, that they express their emotions, and their cultural expression looks different, especially in different settings. So the more that we understand that, the better that we can help them grow to wherever it is they need to grow to.
You know, you talk about the fact that they're not a monolith. Black girls are not a monolith, right? And there's a sense of flexibility just in that statement. However, that may be what they're feeling. What's being imposed upon them, particularly when they're the overwhelming minority?
So much, right? So when we look at statistics, we see that there's push out. Black girls are being pushed out of schools anywhere from two to, in some states, 17 times more often than their white counterparts. So with that, they're experiencing all of the different microaggressions that are going on. I mean, when I work with girls in groups as well as individually, they are really stuffing a lot of emotions. There are experiences that they don't always tell their parents about. And there are ways that they're taking those things and those experiences and internalizing them and deciding, okay, dang, I am ghetto. So, and what I think I am, then I start to act out of. So another thing that's important to notice in predominantly white schools, a lot of times African American males are more acceptable than African American females. Some of the cultural behaviors or some of the fun that we have when we are in our element is actually appreciated and looked upon, more highly when it comes from African American males in PWIs. However, girls tend to get those stereotypical, things that they're labeled as when they perform the same types of behaviors.
Yeah. So as the girls are sort of navigating this, looking at their male peers and realizing they're having even a different experience from there, how do they basically express their authenticity? I mean, there's a lot of things conflicting coming at them, but at some point they have to be authentically them. How does that happen?
So, it means really accepting and allowing them to just be free. A lot of times we limit girls based on our ideals of femininity or, things that are either outdated or just don't apply to the young lady that we're looking at. I have a lot of moms who might have been the more hyper feminine or prissy or girly girl types, and the daughter's not, or vice versa, right? I see moms who are more of the tomboy, and the daughter is like wants lace, like give me pink and lace and lots of it. And so with those relationships, and when you have those dichotomies there, even just between the mother and the daughter, a lot of times there's work that has to be done on communication and allowing that young lady to fully and freely express herself and to get to know who she is. A lot of times when we try to force something on them or force them away from something, guess what they're going to do? That thing. And I work with a lot of women who, it's funny, they'll find that they were running so far from what their mom was, trying to get them to do in terms of their Black girl expression. And they found themselves trying to do the opposite thing, but ultimately in their adulthood found that they were much more secure and comfortable in that thing that their mom was trying to get them to do. So parents, it comes full circle. But that's one of the things we got to do, is just give them the space, I've got a kid who, I don't even know, I think she's an architect. I'm pretty sure she's going to build cars. I've got one that's been picking up bugs since elementary school, and she didn't have a lot of friends, because that's the thing, right? They, in the socialization of young females, especially, when they're skipping rope on those playgrounds, they're not open to having girls who are more scientific. So that's something that we have to encourage as adults who are around them, again, counselors, teachers, any helping professional, mentors, to really, we already know, encourage girls to go into STEM, encourage girls to do things that we don't typically count under the feminine umbrella.
So as they're sitting here and our young ladies are balancing their different identities, you kind of arrive at an imposed double consciousness, which I understand is a historical term. It was a sort of a historical sociological term. But that double consciousness just seems that would help them, that would fray them at a very pivotal time. Can you speak to that point, how double consciousness imposes them on them when they're young, and then how it manifests itself later?
Yeah. So in short, double consciousness, the term coined by W.E.B. Du Bois, is basically dealing with that dichotomy of, exactly what I talk about, your Blackness versus, the code switching and trying to fit in the white world, and going back and forth between that. That's the very, very limited version. But I say that because it's something that I experienced as well, as I talked about my upbringing. I say I'm coming back to the hood right now because I'm actually getting to come back to my hood, my neighborhood, to work with young ladies who were like myself, who were not necessarily in the hood or the, urban whatever area, but were needing help there. So
as we're looking at how these young ladies are being seen differently from their peers and how they see themselves, and quite frankly, how they're seen by each other, there's multiple perspectives, and we really haven't even approached the core of who these burgeoning young ladies are. There's almost this sense of, and I'm going to use a historically sociological term, a double consciousness at work that they're navigating, particularly when they're operating in a suburban environment. Would you agree that that is something that is unique to young Black women, that double consciousness, particularly in the suburbs?
So what's really fun with double consciousness also is that my own experience, I share again, is grew up in Orange County, and I felt like I was the probably blackest Black girl ever. And even I visually thought my skin tone was darker. Some of my Africanized feature, I'd exaggerated if I drew a picture of it. And so that was weird for me. And then I tell people, I ended up going to an all Black school after that, and I was the whitest Black girl in the Black school. And so just that consciousness of, trying to walk that line is so exhausting, trying not to be too Black, trying not to act white. And that's so exhausting from the moment a young person gets around the group that they're working with or they're in, all the way through the end of the day. So if they're having to deal with that all the way through school for 7-8 hours, it's really putting a lot of weight on them to code switch back and forth, to adjust if they see someone's nonverbal expression saying, oh, she's acting ghetto, to be always having to think through what a principal or a teacher or someone meant, to wonder if her hair is problematic. So these things are plaguing these young ladies, and they're taking them home, And again, they're stuffing them, they're not telling their parents, and they're developing a lot of identity issues. And we don't tend to see those come out until they're in their teens a lot more.
Mhm.
So when that occurs, I have to kind of help them piece that back together. So I help with a lot of young ladies who are trying to walk in both worlds and just tripping and falling all over their feet. And it's cute, right? And they're going off of these different rules that they believe their parents want them to go off of, or what the school or what their majority group thinks they want to. And so I really just help them find where they fit in there. And it might be that you do like a certain type of music that's stereotypical, but I help them to find pride in that, and really just love who they are and appreciate who they are, rather than trying to figure out, okay, am I black today? Am I white today? Should I say this? Should I laugh that way? Like, it's so crazy, just the things that plague their minds on a daily basis about trying to fit in those environments.
As they're navigating these environments, particularly among their peers, fortunately, young ladies are constantly being judged, which makes it one more degree difficult as they're trying to discover their authenticity. I'd like to point the light on the authority figures. What influence do authority figures have in that environment? Once again, when we're looking at young African American girls who are maybe moving through life in a suburban community, the authority figures, what's their role in that?
Of course, your authority figures set the tone, so however respect is demonstrated by the authority figures means that's how the rest of the students in the school are going to demonstrate respect. So, I've talked with young ladies in Southern California, especially, that have said, like, yeah, the N word is just a thing. And my teacher heard it said and nothing was done. And so when you have that type of environment, you're promoting push out. You're promoting an environment that is really not safe for African American girls, by giving slaps on the wrist for people who do things like that, or even when altercations occur and only punishing the girl of color. Then we find ourselves in a place where, again, girls are being pushed out of school, and it's no longer being a safe and productive environment for them. For sure, authority figures are going to guide how anyone in the school or any institution is dealing with young ladies, especially Black girls. We even see in research, believe it's Dr. Jamelia Blake out of Georgetown produced a report called Girlhood Interrupted. In that report, we see that adults actually view Black girls as less innocent and more adult-like than their white peers. So when you've got authority figures, saying these kind of off the cuff comments, spitting out little microaggressions, water cooler stuff around the teachers, whatever, even the language that they're writing up IEPs or writing discipline reports or any of that in, they're just kind of perpetuating this idea that, Black girls can be looked at as adult-like and thus judged as adult-like and expected to do things or think, behave, and respond emotively like an adult. I'm sure you guys have people we've seen recently, all the things that have come out in the news. I think there was a 9-year-old I just saw the other day that was pepper sprayed. And the newscaster was like, how are you a grown blank man and need to pepper spray a little 9-year-old girl? And so now we're seeing more and more these reports come out, and they're nothing new. It's just there was such a focus and a spotlight on African American males, that people did not look at the Black girls. And the truth is, it's happening to them. I don't know if it's as often, but I've seen it a lot. I've worked with a lot of clients who have stories of it. And so many times, unfortunately, I'm just going to tell the truth, is what happens is when a Black male is in trouble, or, they come against him and say, oh, he was being aggressive, we'll stand up and say, oh, well, don't stereotype Black men as aggressive. However, that's not said for Black girls. So when a Black girl gets in trouble, a lot of times we have our own Black males or other people or authority figures saying, oh yeah, she was mouthy, that mouth, she deserved that. And so we don't see the same kind of support. And so in advocacy and activism efforts, a lot of times we are trying to protect and insulate our African American boys from being judged in ways that are culturally insensitive. We're not doing that for our girls. And so we are kind of just jumping on that team. So as authority figures, it's important to get yourself educated. I actually do have a training called the Educational Psychology of Black Girls, where I talk about a lot of these things in depth, all the way down to if you want to know what day the girl's going to act up, it's the day her hair's not done, and how to maneuver things like that. I do work with administrators and other people to kind of make their environment for young ladies, Black girls, a safe environment. So ultimately they are though responsible. They're going to set that tone through whatever they show through discipline, whatever they show through just their language and how they approach African American girls.
You know, one of the things that I have found that happens in a positive light as as young African American girls are navigating through particularly suburban environments is the role of a mentor. That there is a safe place in authority somewhere, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an African American administrator or teacher. It could literally be a teacher with a sympathetic and at best race neutral perspective.
Yeah.
What kind of guidance would you be able to provide to the young girls who may be listening in about identifying that individual, again, as a safe haven to help navigate some of the challenges?
Look for someone who is a very respectful person. They are just respectful in the way they carry themselves and the way that they talk to other people. Gosh, I've worked with so many different schools, and they all have a different culture. They all have different, types of culture. They have different types of teachers. Some schools have teachers that are allies, and everybody signs up for equity work. And then we have schools where people are oblivious and they think they know what they're doing. Then we just got people who are honestly just don't care. And so I know it's really hard for them to navigate. It's hard, and I feel like I do go back to this a lot, but it's like, get a professional in your life because they will help. Listen to your mom. If her life looks like it makes sense, do that because she can point you in the right direction. But I think I really was thinking more so with our professionals who work with girls. It's just so important to position ourselves in a place that we can be that, and it might be the lunch lady, it might be whoever, but to position ourselves in a way that we can be that. I know that a lot of times Black people or scholars especially who go to work at predominantly white institutions are kind of told, oh, you sold out. But I went to OU. I went to the University of Oklahoma. And so that being a PWI, it's good to have, like they say, representation matters. So positioning yourselves, be it in the all Black school, the all white school, or whatever it is in between, so that you can be that resource. For one of my kiddos, I won't shout out her teacher's name, but she had a rough time, like think kindergarten through second grade, a rough time. And she had a teacher in third grade, a pretty new, fresh, young white woman who just was humble, right? She was just culturally humble. She didn't know it all. She didn't force education when she could clearly tell emotional stuff was going on. And I was so blessed that that woman got to loop up. So my daughter had her third and fourth grade, and it changed the entire trajectory. And you'll see that education research will tell you that 2 years with a great teacher will change the entire trajectory of your child in education.
Wow.
So I love her. I love her. I love her. I'm not going to call her out. And I had that, right? So honestly, growing up in Orange County schools, when I look back, and I'm actually friends with with my fifth grade teacher, and she rocked. And as I think about the way that I grew up in and how, sometimes it is said that the area is not always the most diverse or accepting of diversity. This teacher, again, a woman with, skin far, far lighter than mine, was really, really good at making sure that the African American kids were heard, that they had a place, that they were represented. I mean, I remember doing things that were like probably not even in the state standards, but she still made sure we learned about African history. And this is in the 90s. So those things are just so, so important as a professional, as anyone who is wanting to help position yourself in a way that you can be available. And when you are, even if, you're not necessarily directly assigned to that kid, be that help, be that voice, be that encouragement. because Black girls a lot of times are starving for that. And if we don't give it to them, they are going to seek attention elsewhere, and they are going to internalize it and have self-esteem issues, which tend to turn into anger issues, which often get medicated in ways that are not healthy. So there's my spill.
So I'm definitely with that dysfunction being perpetuated, there's a very slippery slope on the other end of it.
Yeah.
However, there's also a slope that is more smooth, and that would be, well, frankly, with a professional like yourself, Tamika. So how does our audience find you so that you're giving the tools to these young ladies and allowing them to flourish?
Definitely, you can find me at tamikajcarter.com. That's Tamika jcarter.com. If you go to my site, you can book a consultation. We will chat and figure out what will work best for you and your family. That can include individual therapy. It can include a little bit of parent therapy as well as individual for your daughter. I also offer class groups for girls as confidence, leadership, academics, and social skills. Those are weekly groups because, again, a lot of girls really just do better in group before they do individual therapy. So basically, go to my website, tamikajcarter.com, book a consultation. We'll figure out what works best for you.
Outstanding, outstanding. Completely fortunate to have a professional like Tamika J. Carter to illuminate some of these points and definitely bring dignity and coping skills to our young Black girls, building girl champs. Again, Tamika J. Carter, our subject matter expert. I'm Glenn W. Hunter. As we're out navigating this very crazy world we're living in and just trying to get through, I encourage each and every one of you, do what you need to do, but at all costs, be safe.
Yes.
Thank you.